it should feel wrong to not have a mask on.
Utah is seeing one of the worst COVID-19 case rates in the country. Doctors are asking Utahns to get serious about combating COVID-19 for fear of what could happen if we don't.
An Ogden priest died just 3 days after testing positive for COVID-19. Learn more about his life and legacy.
It's definitely been super hectic, and you just show up and try and make it as normal as possible.
And look at the impact of our evolving COVID guidelines, plus advice from our state's leading health experts tonight on why the changes are good. We go in depth for you and your family in our 360 report.
And we need to see some changes in allowing some big storms to come through. Any possibility of that this week? I'll let you know in the forecast.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
400,000 people that would not be dead if it weren't for a single virus that we can't even see.
As tens of thousands of Americans continue to die from COVID-19, Utah is facing a new battle. It's been named one of the states with the highest daily COVID-19 case rates in our country. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Schnee.
And I'm Amy Nay. Doctors with Intermountain Healthcare say now it is really time for people to get serious about slowing the spread so they don't have to do what some states have been forced to do, start rationed care.
Fox 13's Sydney Glenn joining us live tonight from Intermountain Medical Center in Murray. Sydney.
Brian and Amy, an infectious disease doctor I spoke with says we know how to combat COVID-19, right? We've been hearing it for almost a year now. Wear a mask, limit gatherings, social distance. He says now, though, people need to actually start doing it consistently.
Two of the highest days of cases in the last 12 months have been in the last 10 days.
Grim numbers from the Utah Department of Health, as over 300,000 people have or have had COVID-19 in our state. That's about 10% of the population.
Now we're essentially seeing what we feared.
Doctors warned about a spike in COVID-19 cases following the holidays. Now infectious disease physician Dr. Todd Vento says it's here.
We know how to stop this virus. Sadly, it's knowing it and not doing it.
There are only 3 counties in the entire state with low levels of transmission right now. The rest are in high transmission. Hospitalizations are on the rise in the Beehive State, with ICU beds about 90% full already.
We haven't done this with our practices and behaviors. We've done this with our practices and behaviors. Therefore, we've seen this with our cases and this with our hospitalizations.
New numbers from the CDC show Utah has the 5th highest average number of daily COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people in the country. And it's taking a toll, Dr. Vento said.
It's a fairly much a certainty that you should expect more ICU usage, more ventilators, and more very sick patients.
More cases could be coming, Dr. Vento warns, with holiday weekends this month and next. Plus, school is back in session.
It should look unnatural to us a year into a respiratory virus public health emergency throughout the world. It should look unusual to not have a mask on.
A new study by the CDC suggests more than half of COVID-19 cases come from people without symptoms. Dr. Vento says people really need to think about that.
Assume that you have a high risk of COVID.
Again, Dr. Vento suggests the same tactics to combat the virus we've been hearing for almost a year now, because he says they work.
There's a reason why it sounds like the same thing. We really mean it. We've meant it for 11 months. We mean it really now. And we're really going to need the help of every single individual.
The Utah Department of Health reports they've administered over 100,000 COVID-19 vaccines. And while Dr. Vento says that is great, it's really going to take until early this spring for enough people to have been vaccinated that we will really see an impact in terms of hospitalizations and case counts. Live in Murray, Sydney Glenn, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Sydney, thank you for that report. Let's take a deeper dive into today's COVID-19 statistics. Utah Department of Health reporting more than 2,200 new cases of the virus. The statewide total now stands at just under 306,000. The deaths of a man and a woman, both from Washington County, were also reported today. Just under 1,400 Utahns have now died from the virus. And as Sydney just mentioned, more than 100,000 Utahns have received the COVID-19 vaccine.
Tomorrow, teachers across the state will be eligible to receive their COVID-19 shot. Districts in Salt Lake County say they'll start with the oldest age group first and work their way down the list. Of course, we're talking about vaccinations here. Jeff Haney, the spokesman for Canyon School District, says it will be an all-hands-on-deck effort to get people vaccinated.
We're incredibly grateful for the ramp up of the rollout for the vaccine. In Canyon's district, we are mobilizing quickly to ensure that all eligible employees are provided an opportunity to participate in the vaccination clinics.
Only a number of vaccines may be available at first, a limited number. So districts say while this is promising, it may not happen instantly. Coming up in our next half hour, I'll take a 360 look at how districts and families alike are adjusting to our constantly evolving COVID-19 guidelines here in our state.
More local news for you now. A big loss for Utah's Catholic community, mourning a leader in the faith who passed away this weekend. Father Rene Rodias of the St. James the Just Church in Ogden died on Friday. This was just days after testing positive for COVID-19. Fox 13's Diego Romo spoke with a member of his parish.
Father Rodias tested positive for COVID-19 on January 5th after feeling sick for a few days and died just 3 days later. A parishioner at St. James says church members are shocked and heartbroken.
The community is hurting. It's hard to describe what he must have suffered in those last few days.
It certainly has been a tragedy for the whole diocese. He's well loved.
Originally from the Philippines, Father Rodias arrived in Utah in 2007.
Because of his ministerial skills, he's been involved in 5 different parishes.
He came to Ogden as the pastor of St. James in 2018.
When he came to us, our community started to grow because those who had known him from other parishes would follow him, to be with him, to listen to him, and to associate with him.
John says Father Rodias was a man of sacrifice.
Not many know that he would donate the majority of his salary back to his family in the Philippines.
He loved music and always had a big smile on his face.
He loved to sing. He would come into church singing. I would tease him that Frank Sinatra's in the building, and he would break out into a tune of Frank Sinatra.
And made a large impact on the Ogden community in his 3 years as pastor.
Father Rodias walked the talk. He touched a lot of lives. He was more than a priest to us. He was one of us.
The Diocese of Salt Lake City says Father Rodias' exact cause of death is still being determined. His funeral services will be held at the Cathedral of the Madeleine and will be live streamed for the community. In Ogden, Diego Romo, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Now to a developing story in Tooele County where 2 people are dead, 1 person badly hurt after a crash on eastbound Interstate 80 near Aragonite. Utah Highway Patrol says 2 cars were involved in a head-on collision. The accident shut down eastbound traffic on the highway for hours. The names of the victims have not been released to the public. We'll keep you posted on this story as we continue to learn more.
And in Salt Lake City, firefighters and the community worked together to put a house fire out in less than 30 minutes. This happened around 2:30 this afternoon at 8th West and 4th North. When crews got there, they saw smoke and flames coming out of the home. Nobody was hurt. No word yet on exactly what caused that fire. Meantime, in southern Utah, a home in St. George was completely destroyed in a fire there this morning. These images were captured by our partners at the St. George News. This happened just after 7 a.m. on the 1200 block of North Bloomington Drive. Now, firefighters say this one started in the garage and then spread throughout the home. The cause of the fire is now under investigation.
A railroad bridge in Salt Lake City that caught fire on Thursday is still burning tonight. At this time, firefighters believe the fire is under control. However, there is suspicion there could still be fire smoldering inside of the bridge. Firefighters won't know for sure until the bridge is demolished. They're working with the owner of the railroad, Pacific Rails, as well as a few local government agencies to resolve the issue.
They had a foreman in yesterday evaluating what would take place to demolish it as well as rebuild, because they want to open that line. It's one of the primary lines out west.
Firefighters also say the reason the fire has burned this long is due to the high concentration of the chemical creosote in the area.
Salt Lake City police have caught a murder suspect they were after this weekend. Police say Emilio Salazar died at the hospital after he was shot on California Avenue early Saturday morning. But last night, homicide detectives arrested this man, 19-year-old Alex Mendoza Jr., charging him with Salazar's murder.
Governor Spencer Cox has ordered the American flag and the Utah state flag to fly at half-staff tomorrow in honor of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who was killed in last week's riots in D.C. The governor releasing a statement on Twitter saying in part, quote, Brian D. Sicknick gave his life trying to protect one of this nation's most revered democratic institutions. We honor his life of dedicated public service. The governor added, Abby and I extend our deepest sympathies to the Sicknick family and pray for them and our nation at this difficult time.
It takes a really lot of effort to compete at that level and be awarded an entire mission like this.
Still ahead on Fox 13 News at 9, Utah researchers looking to work with astronauts at the International Space Station. See how their research could impact your daily life.
Plus, he was tragically killed in an electrical accident in South Jordan. See how one Harriman community is paying tribute to him and letting his family know they're not alone. And we'll show you how one nonprofit is looking to help out Utahns in the LGBTQ community in a big way when we come back.
And we're tracking the impact of a valley inversion, but we're also tracking a storm. Will it do enough to clear out the haze? I'll let you know in the forecast.
Thanks for joining us tonight. It's a big milestone for researchers at Utah State University's Space Dynamics Laboratory.
The lab is leading a mission for NASA that will include sending a device to the International Space Station. Fox 13's John Franke explains how the data collected in this project will actually have an impact on our day-to-day lives.
It takes a really lot of effort to compete at that level and be awarded an entire mission like this.
NASA has awarded Utah State's Space Dynamics Laboratory a contract to investigate how weather events on Earth cause gravity waves, creating disturbances high above us.
Some of them penetrate up into that region and then stir things up.
That region is the ionosphere. When particles get stirred up there, it impacts satellite communications that must pass through that region on their way to Earth. Ever received a pixelated signal on your TV when it's stormy? This is why.
Can affect how well you map your canoe trip down the river with your GPS, or how good your I Love Lucy reruns come through.
Bert Lamborn is the project manager, part of the team of 50 in Logan, working to create a device like this. It'll include 4 telescopes in a cylinder and send data back to Earth in real time. But before it can do that, it'll be tested in Logan before being turned over to NASA.
Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and they will launch it to the space station using a SpaceX rocket or a Sierra Nevada rocket.
The instrument is on track to be completed by September 2022.
It's really a Logan, Utah-centric mission that's going to revolutionize how scientists understand how Earth weather affects that layer of space weather.
This is the first time the SDL has managed a mission for NASA at this level. The impact of the data it unearths will be felt around the world.
Everything from sensitive military communication satellites to GPS units to communication satellites, all of that should be improved.
John Franke, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A Harriman neighborhood paying tribute to a fallen Rocky Mountain Power contractor killed in a tragic electrical accident last week. Sean Robertson left behind a wife and 2 children. This video sent to us by April Hewitt showing a balloon release for Robertson today. The 50-year-old passed away when he was on the job at the Warren's restaurant in South Jordan. Robertson's coworkers, as well as other people in the neighborhood, also drove by the family home. Now, if you'd like to donate to a GoFundMe benefiting the family, we have a link to it on our website. It's fox13now.com.
And some more local news to bring you now. Project Rainbow Utah announcing the new Project Rainbow Community Fund, raising money for LGBTQ plus focused events and projects. This initially started in 2018 to raise money for the Utah Pride Center. Since then, it raised over $6,000. Over 500 pride flags in our state have now been staked. The nonprofit wants to help promote visibility of LGBTQ plus Utahns who might not have the means to fundraise.
So I'm hoping that we'll see more works of public art by queer artists and more small-scale events for queer people.
The grants will range from $100 to $7,000. To apply, we've put a link to the project's website at fox13now.com.
New at 9, ski resorts continuing to double down on their stance of protecting people from COVID-19. Solitude Mountain Resort saying in a statement on social media that they will not tolerate guests who are disrespectful or combative towards staff. They go on to say, quote, "Our employees, especially those on the front lines, have been directed to enforce our COVID-19 protocols. They are not in a position to allow for compromise or exceptions, and they are as concerned with the well-being of guests as they are of their own." Now, Fox 13 reached out to resort officials, but none were made available to discuss what led to the message. According to state guidelines, face coverings are required at all of Utah's ski areas, including both indoor and outdoor spaces. Social distancing also required on the grounds of all resorts.
Just yesterday, we were telling you about a deadly avalanche. Well, another slide to tell you about where a Cache Valley man found himself lucky to be alive after he was trapped by this avalanche for over 15 minutes. 43-year-old Cody Nelson and 2 other men were riding timber sleds in Steep Hollow, west of Franklin Basin Road, when they triggered an avalanche. The 2 other men made it out when they realized Nelson was trapped underneath the snow. Now, fortunately, they were able to find him thanks to a tracking beacon he was wearing, and they dug him out. Afterwards, it took only a few short minutes for Nelson to come to and said he realized he was still alive.
And then the next thing I know, I'm sitting upright and Johnny's kind of banging on me and talking to me, telling me to open my eyes, telling me to wake up.
Well, they say this is a lesson to all to be careful in Utah's backcountry. These things can happen in an instant. Another avalanche this weekend in the backcountry, as we mentioned again, sadly killed a Clinton man.
Well, they did a lot of things right there. They had a beacon. They were in a group in the backcountry, lucky to be alive.
Absolutely, yeah.
After being buried, after what has just been a scary week for those that love the backcountry here in the state.
Really, for sure. Yeah, 15 minutes is a long time. A happy ending due to being prepared. I always say you got to take a course once a year to get a refresher if you're going to the backcountry to make sure you know how to use the equipment and you know where you need to go. Now, let's take a look at the situation today across the state where above the inversions we found blue sky. It was sunny, it was beautiful, it was cold. We had 2 levels of an inversion right at the surface. That's where we see the haze. But up towards mid-level, we had this area of condensation forming these low deck of clouds across the Wasatch Front through Tooele County. You can really see that well defined there from this view in Snow Basin, where these clouds kind of hovering around until the early afternoon, finally burning off. But this is a situation we might find ourselves here for the next day or so. And if it does reach the valleys, we call that fog. In some areas, we can see the development of that patchy fog overnight. But all in all, things, well, we're not looking at any big storms at least to start the work week off. Today, though, official high 37 degrees, right where we should be for this time of year. Record for this state, 57 degrees. And we're not going to see temperatures in the 50s if we didn't have the inversion due to the high pressure that's in place. We potentially might get up there, but it's going to be difficult because we're going to be trapping in that air, especially with a couple of evenings with clear skies. Temperatures will quickly drop. That's the scene here for tonight as we're already down into the mid-20s, going towards the teens for some valley locations along the Wasatch Front, single digits in other areas. I mentioned the air quality. We've been seeing it decrease here throughout the weekend. Yesterday's weak storm helped us out, getting us back into that good category for a brief period of time. Right now, it's more moderate concern level through Cache Valley. Again, most of the Wasatch Front, the dominant color there from all our stations, it looks like yellow, a little bit more orange in Utah County, moving into the unhealthy. And looking ahead, that's where we're going to be, I wouldn't say shooting for. Mother Nature's just going to drive that situation here due to no storms mixing out here Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, potentially towards the end of the week, we have another storm. Let me just classify it right now. It's another weak storm. Brings the best chance of showers for the mountains, but it will usher in some cooler air. That will help things out. But again, not looking at any big storms on the way. Now we're going to be seeing that low-level clouds developing across western Utah. Some high-level clouds tracking through the state, but high pressure still the major influence and the biggest influence for the weather pattern here to start the work week off. forcing the storms and the moisture north and east of the state. Let's confirm with the computer models what we're expecting to see, where again you're seeing that white there. That is the development of that deck of low-level clouds, those stratus clouds, again across areas such as Tooele County down through central Utah. They don't produce showers. They just kind of hover around, trying to burn off throughout the day as we get a little things mixing out as we do allow temperatures to warm up. Now, moving into Tuesday, we do see potentially maybe near the Utah-Idaho border, a brief shower, but all in all, that high pressure, again, forcing the moisture and the disturbance north of the state. It's a cold night. It's teens. Some areas in the single digits. We'll be looking at partly cloudy skies tonight and tomorrow, as temperatures very similar to what we found today, but a little bit warmer across southern Utah, with highs reaching the low 50s in St. George. Now, you do not have the impact of an inversion for St. George, at least for this week, as that'll allow temperatures to climb up into the low 60s, but no chance of any precipitation for St. George. Northern Utah, we'll be calling partly cloudy skies. Yes, we'll see the haze increasing. Yes, we'll allow temperatures to warm up, but the air quality will be a concern up until Saturday and Sunday, hopefully with a weak storm that brings those mountain showers and drops temperatures out. But again, we just don't see us turning a corner. We do not see any big storms.
It seems like from minute to minute it changes. You're constantly checking your updates from emails from the school to make sure, you know, you can even have anyone there, if the games are going to happen, if the whole season's been canceled.
How one Utah family is handling our ever-evolving COVID guidelines when it comes to high school athletics, and what the state health department says we should all expect moving forward when we go in depth in our 360 report coming up.
But first, zoos are dealing with fewer visitors and less income. How they're adapting so they're still ready to welcome crowds when the pandemic is over. When we come back.
Welcome back. It has been a struggle for some zoos and aquariums all across the country as they've lost revenue due to restrictions on visitors during our pandemic.
Dan Grossman shows us how at first there was concern about how long zoos could last. Now they're finding ways to adapt and still keep animals healthy and fed.
This was not the 125th year celebration this zoo had in mind.
Normally this path on a summer day would be filled with families and kids and, laughter.
Things are quiet, serene almost, if it wasn't for the fact that this stagnancy has led to challenges the Denver Zoo and spokesman Jake Cubier have not yet faced before.
Come hell or high water, we're going to take care of these animals, and that's really the creed of the AZA.
The AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, the nonprofit that works with our country's 240 accredited zoos and aquariums. In it, there are more than 500,000 animals that need food and care each day and every day.
It's definitely been one of those things that makes you scratch your head a little bit like, what the heck's going on?
Take that elephant entering the frame behind zoo nutritionist Jason Williams' head. She eats around $76,000 worth of food each year.
There's certain things you can, jockey around and try to be more efficient at, but the primary care of the animals and the nutrition profiles and the diets of the animals have never been on the table.
It makes it a numbers game. Take Denver's situation. Each month, it costs $1 million to feed and care for its animals. But since the pandemic started, the zoo has either been closed or operating at limited capacity. That means its largest portion of income, visitors who make up 70% of revenue, have been missing. And it's been like that for each and every zoo across the country.
I think it's very safe to say that through everything that's happened in that time, this is probably the most challenging year in the zoo's history and in the industry's history, honestly.
It has meant cutting staff, some of whom have created bonds with these animals, choosing more cost-effective ingredients, and slashing educational programs and conservation efforts that make the zoo a bastion of experiential learning for adults and kids alike.
It's been a challenging time, but at the same time, I think it's really allowed us to focus in on the things that are very important and make sure that those things don't change.
Zoos with fewer than 300 employees will be eligible for part of the $284 billion in PPP loans included in the government's most recent stimulus package passed around the holidays, as well as $15 billion in grants, making this labor of love a little more manageable moving forward in this new year.
The zoo is such a special place because the circle of life continues here no matter what.
I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
The end is in sight, so that's a good thing.
but it's not next month or the next couple months.
Advice from our state epidemiologist, Dr. Angela Dunn, tonight on where we are as a nation in our fight against COVID-19 and how to help you and your family navigate the evolving guidelines. Fox 13's 360 report just 90 seconds away. Tonight, we go in depth to help you decipher the best way you and your family can navigate the changing guidelines we've seen through this pandemic. Now, I talked to a local family, a school district spokesperson, and Dr. Angela Dunn, who you could say has been the face of our state's public health response. Here's what they had to say in tonight's 360 report.
It's just been really difficult to know exactly what's going to happen.
Fontel Mogul and her son have been trying to be flexible this basketball season as games get canceled, rescheduled, protocols and much more change day to day.
It's just a kind of a guessing game exactly what's going to happen and what isn't.
Junior Creed Mogul plays for Gunnison Valley High School. In fact, he had 3 games just this past week. In this game against Enterprise, some fans were allowed, a change in policy by the Utah High School Athletics Association that began at the start of the new year, allowing 4 spectators for every player or participant in the game, as long as the gym remained below 25% capacity. A welcome change after they started the season without any spectators.
Empty gym. Super quiet.
But cheers filled the gymnasium Thursday night, something Creed says he hopes will be able to continue.
When you're hearing everybody cheering when you do something right, like you just want to keep going.
His 20 points helped lead his team to a win, but he knows it could all change suddenly, like last spring.
We got 1 game in, and then it was done.
You lost baseball season, and then it was always kind of a guess to know what was going to happen.
Trying to let people know how to handle it when we're learning more information about it yourself day to day.
I mean, that's definitely the biggest challenge, right? And when the science is changing, I mean, at the beginning, it seemed like every single day, it's hard to maintain that sense of trust.
State epidemiologist Dr. Angela Dunn says guidelines have evolved since the start of the pandemic because our knowledge of COVID-19 has evolved.
We have to remember that this virus has only been in existence for 1 year. We have made incredible strides in our knowledge and prevention against this virus. So it's expected that things are going to change because we're learning so much so quickly.
She says her office has been working closely with schools and athletics to ensure they're proceeding as safely as possible.
From the beginning, there was always this unknown of, can kids get it and how much can they get it and can they transmit it? And what we're learning from our school settings is that when all the kids and teachers are wearing masks, there's not a lot of COVID spread.
Less than 2%, in fact, on school grounds, says Granite School spokesman Ben Horsley.
Groups of kids are coming together on school property. They're staying safe, they're wearing masks, but then those same group of kids will go home and still participate in other activities. And that's where we're seeing the spread. Over 82% right now of cases are being spread in the home.
New quarantine guidelines in the schools started as kids returned back to class after winter break. No longer is a student required to quarantine 2 weeks if that student was exposed to a sick student and both were wearing masks.
We feel comfortable with these modifications. They seem based in logic and reason, and they help us to keep kids in school, just where they need to be.
You guys have had to sort of stay fluid with this as you learn more from the medical experts about COVID-19.
Correct. And again, the data is driving all of these decisions.
Some teachers express frustration at these adjustments amid our largest surge in new cases so far. But Horsley says these decisions were based on health department reviews of spread within the schools.
If those masks are being worn, it's no longer necessary to quarantine as many individuals as we've seen.
This is still going to be evolving over even the next couple years.
Dr. Dunn says that's especially true as the vaccines start to roll out.
The one thing that has been consistent throughout this is change, and that will continue.
Asking the public to stay vigilant with mask wearing, social distancing, and staying home when sick until we start seeing it impact from vaccination, which she says most likely won't be until this fall, expecting more adjustments to our protocols along the way.
The end is in sight, so that's a good thing, but it's not next month or the next couple months. We have several months left to go.
I'm impressed with the kids and the way they adapt.
Fontel works in the schools as a speech and language pathologist and says the way she's been able to teach and interact with her students has dramatically changed.
It's so nice to be in person. I am grateful for that. evolution for sure.
And as for her son's new routine with regular COVID testing, masking during practices, and more, he says it's now just a part of life.
Hopefully it just keeps gradually getting better and feeling more normal in that way, and just, I can't call it normal because nothing's really normal now, but better life, I guess.
And thank you to everybody who talked to me about this story. For more on this and a complete list of resources on how to navigate our current guidelines and to help stop the spread of COVID-19, you can go to fox13now.com and click on the coronavirus tab. It's right at the top of your screen.
Amy, thank you so much for that report. We've got a lot more news ahead for you on Fox 13 News at 9. Coming up, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle pushing for a potential second impeachment of the president. We'll take a deeper dive in what needs to be done to make that happen, just 10 days away from leaving office.
More business owners in California defying lockdown orders as the state sees a surge in COVID-19 cases. In New York, I'm Alex Hogan. I have details on that story coming up.
And to get a break from the haze, you head for the hills. That's what one viewer did with the shot up Logan Canyon. A lot of sunshine there, breathing that clear air. I'm hoping to capture some stormy weather this week. Do we see that image? I'll let you know coming up.
President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever.
You likely know that voice. Actor and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger strongly condemning President Donald Trump following the protests at the Capitol last Wednesday. In the nearly 7.5-minute long video released on social media, Schwarzenegger calling for people to rally their support behind President-elect Joe Biden, who is set to take office 10 days from today. But some lawmakers want to hold President Trump accountable sooner than that.
There are plans to present an impeachment resolution this week. Britt Conway has a look ahead at what that process could look like.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol. You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Now it's Democrats promising to show strength.
You must voice disapproval of what the president did.
And a number of Republicans have said they want the president to leave office.
What I've heard from fellow Republicans is that they've had enough.
Others worry pushing impeachment will only deepen the divide.
It's like throwing gasoline on the fire. And I just think we really need to focus on having a very peaceful transition of power. We need to focus on unity. We need to focus on taking responsibility for what happened on Wednesday.
The impeachment resolution could be introduced as soon as Monday.
It may be Tuesday or Wednesday before an action is taken, but I think it will be taken this week.
But that doesn't mean it'll get sent to the Senate right away.
The impeachment of the president to remove him from office clearly is not going to happen between now and the last day he's in office. This is more of a long-term punishment of the president.
And holding off on sending the resolution to the Senate would keep the impeachment proceedings from bogging down the early days of Biden's presidency.
Let's give President-elect Biden the 100 days he needs to get his agenda off and running.
Allowing time to get an economic relief package passed and Biden's top nominees confirmed. Britt Conway, Fox 13 News, Utah.
There's also been talk of censoring President Trump in a move that may be able to draw more bipartisan support than impeachment could. And sources close to Vice President Mike Pence saying he has not completely dismissed the idea of invoking the 25th Amendment. Meantime, reaction is split over the decision by some social media companies to block President Trump's accounts. Some lawmakers saying these bans are long overdue, while others fear the move will only lead to increased censorship of political speech.
Facebook, Twitter, these are not moral champions here. The reason why these guys are doing it is because the Democrats are about to take power and they view this as a way to get on their good side.
The president suggesting Friday he could create his own social media platform in the future, but he has yet to say what that would look like or if it would launch before he leaves office.
The conservative social media app Parler has been banned by Google Play and Apple's App Store. Amazon Web Services also pulled the plug on hosting Parler's website, effectively kicking Parler off the internet until it can find another host site. We turn now to coronavirus across the nation. As COVID numbers surge in many states, extended lockdowns are also taking their toll on many Americans.
As Fox's Alex Hogan reports, most will still have to wait months before they're able to get the vaccine.
The streets of London nearly empty this weekend as the UK grapples with another lockdown that's expected to last through at least February. People are only allowed out for essential reasons and daily exercise.
Looking at how the park is today, I think people are tired of being isolated.
It's a hard and lonely time for everybody, although I realise how fortunate I am to be able to get out and about.
Daily death tolls in the UK have reached an all-time high since the start of the pandemic, and hospitals are quickly running out of beds. In California, hospitals are similarly overburdened with patients, warning they may have to ration care if case numbers continue to rise.
I've been here 21 years. And I've seen more people pass away in the past week, in the past couple weeks, really, than I almost like it combined in all of my career as a nurse.
The governor has ordered a new round of restrictions there to slow the surge, but patience for the restrictions is wearing thin with many residents.
I have 2 daughters in their 20s who, they can't attend class, they can't do anything, and they're turning to substance abuse and depression because nothing's open.
As business owners struggle to pay rent after months of lockdown, more and more are defying orders to stay closed.
I'm going to stay here until they put some cuffs over my wrist and take me to jail.
The vaccine was supposed to be the light at the end of the tunnel for lockdowns, but medical experts warn that the nationwide rollout is lagging behind what is needed to get things back on track by this summer. In New York, Alex Hogan, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Coming up, a little girl inspiring so many people with her crafts. Hear about the noble reason why she's making bracelets and sending them all across the country.
The wild card playoff round came to an end in the NFL. 3 games today, and the Jazz continued their road trip in Detroit. Could they knock off the Pistons? The highlights are on the way.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're staying up with us tonight here at Fox 13 News at 9. A rubber band bracelet making second grader is proving that nothing is impossible.
With determination and spunk, she's faced the pandemic by raising funds for frontline healthcare workers. And as Usher Qureshi found, she's showing no signs of letting up just yet.
I like the rainbow ones because those are probably my favorite colors.
Making colorful rubber band bracelets
I can do them in my sleep.
has become second nature for Haley Orlinsky.
I can make them in 2 seconds.
I initially thought this would keep her busy for a few hours, and then I thought maybe a few days. So this kept her busy for 10 months.
But it wasn't just a way to pass the time during the pandemic. Hearing about the shortage of personal protective equipment for healthcare workers in March, this 7-year-old decided she needed to do something.
I wanted to help, but I didn't know how, but I knew everybody loved bracelets. So I ran up to my room and I made these friendship bracelets, and I told my mom that I want to sell these and raise money for one of the hospitals. Hi guys, it's Haley.
Haley's original goal was to raise a modest $200 for the hospital where she was born. But after Mom posted to Facebook, it took off.
People started sharing it, so within 4 hours it was up to $1,500.
Over the summer, she enlisted the help of her 400 fellow summer campers.
And every day we would come home with like 10, 20 bracelets, because everybody in their downtime, they would be making bracelets to help me.
Kids in Texas, Ohio, and across the country have also joined in,
I donated these little alley cat charms to try to help her make more money.
including Louisiana resident Allison Bork and her kids.
Seeing her connect people at a time where we felt so disconnected was such an inspiration.
Charging $3 per bracelet and $5 for one with an additional charm, the fundraising phenom and her helpers have raised $30,000 in the last 10 months. Do you know how much money that is?
It's more than the tuition it gives.
Haley's fundraising has gotten the attention of politicians, Broadway actors, and professional athletes. Do your fingers get tired?
Yeah, I can really use a manicure.
Manicure or not, this plucky second grader has no plans to stop just yet. Ask Haley how long she'll keep going.
I want to do it till everybody's vaccinated and COVID is over.
In Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Right Raising more than what the tooth fairy gives. Yeah, she's made just a little bit more than that.
She's got quite the business sense, too. Maybe a future CEO or something right there.
I love it. That's a good one. All right, we had to lead into weather with something that makes you smile because, Brack, we're all hoping for something a little better.
Oh, I want to bring that message. Love to make you smile. A big storm would do the trick, but that's not what we're seeing start the work week off. I mentioned, the inversion building in. And today, as we take a look at our Old Mill camera, time lapse, highlighting that deck of low clouds that formed right across the valleys of the Wasatch Front over towards Tooele. It burned off in the afternoon, revealing that we've got beautiful blue sky. The haze wasn't too bad, but expect that to change here as we look for the first couple of days to start the week off, where temperatures right now in the mid-20s, winds light. It's going to be a cold night under partly cloudy skies. We're looking at temperatures to drop down into the teens, so a very chilly start to your Monday morning. No travel issues, no storms to have an impact for your morning commute. No, we're going to be looking at high pressure building in, thus the valley inversion strengthening, so haze increasing as we're going to be moving into the unhealthy category, transitioning from Monday into Tuesday. Now, we can still see that level of clouds or that deck of clouds forming along the Wasatch Front and portions of northern and western and central Utah here overnight, potentially also right near the surface where we could develop some patchy morning fog. But long range, trying to find those storms, those big storms that would bring several inches of snow. We just do not see it, but there is a possibility of once again seeing a weak storm here over the next few days. But air quality with certainty there. We know it's going down Monday and Tuesday, as mentioned, in the unhealthy situation. Now, looking at satellite radar currently, some clouds tracking through southern Utah. As we give you a wider viewpoint, that high pressure is the biggest influence right now on the weather pattern, forcing the moisture and the storms north and east of the state. That will be in place. Nothing really to break it down again until the weekend. Now let me show you the long-range computer models. As we go from tonight through tomorrow, some clouds in place. Now we do have a storm to the north of us heading into Tuesday. It clips extreme northern Utah near the Utah-Idaho border, bringing a possibility of some light showers, but again, avoiding northern Utah, most of the state as well. Going into Thursday, we might see some mountain showers, very light, not expecting to see much accumulation. Different story late Friday through Saturday morning. Northern Utah gets hit with another weak storm. Again, the biggest impact will be across the higher terrain, where we could once again see a few inches of accumulation, nothing of feet, and again, not having much of an impact for the valleys, but it will help break us free from the inversion, at least for a little bit, potentially as we look towards next week, and we might get back to that good situation there and breathe easier. But again, long-range models just not coinciding here to allow us to see any big storms on the horizon. Now, hour-by-hour forecast to start your morning off. I mentioned it's cold. We're down into the teens. So if you're going to do that morning walk and jog, air quality, a little bit of a concern. Becomes more of a concern Tuesday and Wednesday morning, but all in all, we'll see those clouds around until the afternoon, then we'll be looking at mostly sunny skies. Temperatures very similar to today. We're in the 30s for most spots, 40s though in Milford, 50s in St. George. I mentioned that temperature climb with temperatures getting up into the 60s by the end of the week. And for the weekend, looks like it'll be mostly sunny and a little bit of cooler air on Sunday. Northern Utah, again, we don't see the storms impacting the valleys, maybe some mountain showers potentially as we go Tuesday night, maybe Thursday night, better chance Friday through Saturday morning. But you notice I don't put any snowflakes there on the screen because we do not see the impact for the valleys. Actually, we'll find temperatures climbing just a little bit, getting up above normal with temperatures in the mid-40s by Wednesday.
Well, the Jazz continued their 7-game road trip today with an afternoon game against the Detroit Pistons. Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz came out playing well today against the Pistons. Mitchell, nice drive inside, hangs and hits the tough shot. That put the Jazz up 9-0. Then Mitchell with the step back. 3 is up and it's good. He had 13 points in the first quarter as the Jazz led it by as many as 20. Joe Ingles missed the Jazz last game against the Buck, ending his streak of consecutive games played at 384. He's back today, 3 of his 9 points. Former Lone Peak star Frank Jackson now with the Pistons. Looked good on that 3, but it was his only bucket of the game. The Jazz led it by 17 at the half. The Pistons closed the game out in the third quarter. Former Utah Ute DeLon Wright finds himself open, scores 2 of his 6 points there, but the Jazz stayed on top with big shots in the fourth. Mike Conley, long range, he finished with 22 points. Jordan Clarkson working for his shot in the paint, and he gets it. That put the Jazz up by 7. He scored 18. And then Mitchell gets it back and hits the 3. He led the Jazz with 28 points. Jazz beat the Pistons 96-86 to improve to 6-4. They'll play in Cleveland on Tuesday. NFL playoffs, the Saints took on the Bears. First quarter, it's Drew Brees finds Michael Thomas, 11-yard touchdown, put the Saints on top 7-0. The Saints did not find the end zone again until the third quarter. Brees dumps it off to Latavius Murray. He gets in for the touchdown. The Saints up 14-3. Playoff wins never getting old for Brees. He turns 42 this week. The Saints had one more touchdown in the fourth quarter. They beat the Bears 21-9 to advance. In the AFC, the Ravens took on the Titans. It looked great for Tennessee in the first quarter. Ryan Tannehill to A.J. Brown makes the catch of the end zone. The Titans jumped out to a 10-0 lead. But the Ravens rallied behind their quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Scrambles out of the pocket. And this is what makes him special. 48 yards for the touchdown. He ran for 136, threw for 179. The Titans won it 20-13. The Browns took on the Steelers in the final game. Porter Gustin made a big play for the Browns. The former Salem Hills High School star tips the pass, then lays out and makes the catch. Browns led it 28-0 in the first half. Then in the fourth quarter, Ben Roethlisberger is picked off for the fourth time. This one by former BYU Cougar Sione Takitaki. The Browns won it 48-37. It's their first playoff win in 26 years. We'll hear from the Jazz after today's win in Detroit coming up tonight on the Fox 13 Sports page, plus the Utes after their game against Oregon. Neemias Queta on breaking the blocks record at Utah State, and new BYU offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick on the future of BYU football. We'll be right back.
Finally for you tonight, we haven't seen a lot of snow here this winter, but Spain sure saw a ton of it just over these last few days in a massive record storm. One guy taking advantage of it, having a little fun. I know they were throwing snowballs, and then look at this guy in the T-Rex costume playing around in the snow. And is that COVID safe? Maybe it keeps people keeping their distance.
Spain's stealing all our snow, though.
All of
That's
it.
the big
That's where
takeaway.
it's
They
hitting.
got all of it.
All right.
Hey, thanks so much for watching tonight.
Don't go anywhere. QuickCast is next. Sports page after that. We'll see you in a few minutes.